Welcome, everybody, to the Define Yourself show. Just a quick update on what our show is all about. It's about people who have a story to share about transformation, whether that's in business, career, or personal. And because we are human, we bring our whole selves to work. And I just enjoy so much speaking to people who've experienced transformation so that I can learn, and hopefully you guys can learn along the way and be inspired on their journey. And also to remember that defining ourselves or defining yourself is about defining what we value and building character to add value to others and to go beyond. And so I am thrilled to invite our speaker today, Andrea McLean. And so what I'm going to do, though, is give a little bit of an intro, and then we'll hear a little bit from Andrea because we've got a bang-up show for you. So Andrea is a founder and president of ACM Coaching Group. She's a board-certified life coach and career executive coach with over 30 years in executive leadership experience in global roles for major multinational companies. She was most recently with Estee Lauder for almost 18 years. Her most recent role was leading the Consumer Care Center of Excellence for Global Compliance. She was also an internal executive coach for a dedicated women's leadership program called Open Doors and a co-chair of the North America chapter of the Women's Leadership Network Employee Resource Group. And as a champion for women's advancement, she is a mentor at Rider University for young women. She's also has obtained her master's degree in organizational leadership from Rider University. She holds an undergraduate degree in chemistry. Very accomplished, you can see. She's got many coaching certifications, one from Rider University and the CAP Institute. She's a Thinkers 50 High Impact Coaching Enhanced Practitioner and a Principles of You certified coach. Andrea is passionate about diverse women becoming their best authentic selves. Her blend is mindful listening, powerful coaching questions, makes her very relatable as a coach, and prompts others to tear down their limiting beliefs. And so I am just thrilled to welcome you to the program. I forgot to mention you're an author. I could go on. So I'm so excited. So our episode today is Level Up, Empowering Women Through Personal Branding, Mentorship, and Sponsorship. Do you have any, like newspaper headlines before we go to our first question, kind of about the topic for today?
Yeah, the topic is really about believing in yourself, getting yourself ready through the necessary skills, and then going for it.
I love it. Okay. So that's, I think, a good segue for what are your thoughts on deciding to be your future self and taking the reins of your career?
I'll give a little bit of a background, where that phrase came from. So for me, deciding to be my future self was when I didn't get the promotion that I was looking for, and I had to step back and reflect on what is it that I really want to do in my next chapter. And that led me down the path of remembering a comment that had been told to me probably 8 years prior, that based on my Gallup strengths, that I had the personality trait to be a good coach. And then I thought about what I've been doing over my career, and I had always been giving people advice, coaching, mentoring, and it just solidified everything for me. And I decided to be my future self. So it's a decision. We can dream, we can think about the future, but until you decide to take that step, you won't make it a reality. So for me, that's decide to be your future.
I love that. That's so much in alignment with the motto for my company, which is don't find yourself, define yourself and go beyond, which is about, this whole define yourself idea. What are your values? What do you love doing? Love that you do Strength Finders. That's amazing. So can you share more about the power of mentorship and sponsorship?
I'm a firm believer in mentorship, and actually I've mentored throughout my career, but I will give you my experience of one of the most significant mentors in my life. Again, I've had mentors throughout my career, but when I went back to do my master's, I was in my 50s. And so I joined an organization, which is the one I mentor with now, for women at Rider. It's a leadership organization. And I was kidding myself saying I was going to be the oldest mentee. But nonetheless, I signed up, went for the interview, got into the program. And I was assigned with a woman who was my mentor and is an executive coach. And it was wonderful because, again, this was part of me trying to figure out my next. So having her as my mentor, telling me about the business of coaching, really getting me to reflect on what it is I really wanted to do, who was going to be my client, that for me was a powerful mentoring relationship. And based on that, I decided to give it back at Writer. And I also now, the last couple of years, have mentored at Women Unlimited Inc. So I have a passion for mentoring women, whether young to middle aged. It's just about us finding out who we are and really pursuing what's next for us.
That's I just love, well, you and I bonded over mentorship programs.
Yes.
Because my soul came alive when I created the mentorship program at Costco, even though I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a leadership, L&D background, that sort of more classical background.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have been telling me a little bit about the power sponsorship has had both in your career and also sort of setting up sponsorship programs. Can you maybe expand upon that? I think that would be wonderful for everybody
Yeah,
to hear.
absolutely. I had the privilege of being a sponsee in a program at my last company 3 years ago. And I was paired with the most senior executive in human resources, which was amazing. And as we built a relationship and he got to know me and he asked me what it is I really wanted to do. Now, given that I had a master's in organizational leadership and development, he was probing me. Did I want to go into HR? What did I want to do? And I shared with him that I really loved coaching. And he encouraged me to go and pursue the certifications to, put my toes in the water, so to speak, and determine whether or not this is what I wanted to do. And so he, for me, was an amazing sponsor and really, again, pushed me on the path and gave me the courage to really move into my next. And so, sponsorship personally has impacted me, but as part of the Women's Leadership Network, when I was a co-chair, and even prior to becoming a co-chair, I led the mentorship and sponsorship pillar. And so was about helping women, setting them up with mentors for the mentorship program. But for the sponsorship program, it was about creating their brand, developing a bio so they could share that with others, and then create a sponsorship relationship. And, we talked about things like, how do you find a sponsor? How do you set yourself up for a sponsor to want to sponsor you? And, what are your responsibilities once you get into that sponsorship relationship?
Yeah, I'm part of a multi-author book. You're an author, so I'm like, ooh, not worthy.
No, no, not at all.
But my multi-author book is coming out, and I also had a chance to talk to like over 100 HR people, and I said, this is my definition of sponsorship. I think we
Mhm.
agree. And that is when someone has access to a room that you don't have access to, and they put their political capital on the line for your best interest, whether that's a stretch assignment, it could be
Mhm.
actually a promotion. And so I don't know if you have any tweaks you want to do to that particular definition, but maybe you can expand on that, because
Mhm.
sponsorship is magical for people in the organizations who can find someone who can do that, because we're not in all those rooms that certain decisions are being made.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm aligning with your definition because sponsorship is where you have somebody who is going to advocate for you when you're not in that room. So I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And but the other thing I would also say about sponsorship is if you're a sponsee, you've got to make sure that you live up to the expectations because that sponsor is putting their political capital on the line by saying that I believe in this person. I think this person can go to the next level. So you've got to deliver. This is not just a nice to have and it's wonderful you have a sponsor. You've got to deliver as well because they're putting themselves out there to support you.
It's funny because, really, when you think about it, sponsors, mentors, and even coaches kind of see, their, and there's different relationships there. So in a
Mhm.
coach, it might be a coachee, relationship, and a mentor, it'd be mentee, and a sponsor,
Mhm.
sponsor. They kind of see that person in two ways. One, how they are now, and two, how they may not see in themselves yet, but basically their potential. And so I love how
Absolutely.
you put that, where there's political capital getting put on the line for sponsorship, whereas a mentee mentor relationship may not, it could also the same person could also be a sponsee, but in that case, they may be just sharing
Yeah.
relevant experience, and and they're obviously it's a wonderful relationship, but kind of different maybe facets of how we establish our brand and try to be very thoughtful about what we want to do in our
Yeah,
career.
absolutely.
Yeah. So let's turn the page here. Help me understand how you think about the growth mindset and
Mhm.
learning, because obviously challenges and mistakes happen, and
Yes.
there's kind of two perspectives. Obviously, your own career journey, and then that of you as a coach and a mentor.
So I'll tell you about the first challenge, and then we'll see where the conversation goes from there. One of the biggest challenges I've had in my career, and I remember to this day, I was a young food scientist working for a company, and my then boss said that she got the consumer care function as part of her portfolio. And because of that reorganization, it was now under her umbrella, so to speak. And she tapped me and said, "You know a lot about these products. I think that you could lead the consumer care function." And I didn't even know that a consumer care function existed, to be honest. So
You're in the
I
headlines.
remember, you know, I, I I got all these books and I was like reading up about consumer service and customer service and the technology involved and just trying to educate myself. And I thought that that was going to be the biggest challenge. What I didn't realize was that she was doing a reorganization, and the woman who was leading the function, who was about twice my age, was no longer in charge of the function, and I was now the leader, and this woman was reporting to me.
Ooh,
So it was that was a huge lesson, but I was very gracious about it. And again, I didn't make the decision. I just found myself in this position. Again, here was a mentor and sponsor who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And anyway, I built a good relationship with the woman, and we worked together to bring in some new technology, phone systems, computer systems, and about a year later, she worked with me. About a year later, she said, "You know what? I think I'm going to retire to Arizona." But we were able to work together and in a non-threatening way, because again, I wasn't there to make her look like she hadn't done a good job. I don't know what went on behind the scenes in terms of why the reorganization took place, but I just knew that I needed her to be my partner because she had been there for a number of years and understood a lot of the history. So that was a big challenge for me, but a huge career lesson in terms of how to collaborate, work with others, and actually build relationships and partnerships, even with, there's some challenging or tense situations.
that's amazing. Yeah, there's so much discussion these days about creating a psychological safe space, and you obviously did that with this lady. So, how do you think about adopting a growth mindset and challenges, and when challenges and mistakes happen because we're human, from a coach and mentor perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And, adopting a growth mindset and shifting your mindset, it's actually part of a model that I've created called the SOAR model. And the S is for shift your mindset. And what that means is that look at things from a different perspective. Many times we have these limiting beliefs that we think are true, but we really need to test them and to say, is that really valid? Where's this coming from? And so that's the growth mindset. The growth mindset is that I'm not the way I always have to be. I can learn, I can grow, I can do new things. I'm not contained by this box that I've put myself in. So it's really about being able to move and change versus saying, "This is fixed. This is who I am. I'll never be any different. This is my lot in life," so to speak. So, so really, that's what a growth mindset is. It's really opening up yourself to change, being flexible, being adaptable, and being willing to try new things that you might not have done before.
I was wondering what the equivalent in chemistry would be for shifting your mindset, but anyway, you could think about that one later. My daughter actually has an undergraduate degree in chemistry as well. So what's the rest of your SOAR acronym? That's pretty cool. If you want to share.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yes. So the O is for overcome challenges. The A is for activate your plan. And then the R is for reflect and refine.
Oh,
And
I
through
love that.
doing that, you'll soar into your future.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. That's
Thank
great.
you.
So, just out of curiosity, did you have any? And of course, we will change the names to protect the innocent. Do you have any? Can you think back on any coaching or mentoring situations where you had to kind of help someone go through your SOAR when they were finding the, that particular mentee or coachee was finding themselves in a kind of situation?
Yeah, actually, there's a fresh one in mind. Um, she was in the nursing field, had been an emergency room nurse, but she got an opportunity to move into an agency on the agency side to recruit nurses, traveling nurses. But here she was now in a leadership role where she was having to work with others to make decisions. She wasn't as autonomous. And she's coming from this emergency room setting where it's like, I've got a triage, I make the decisions, let's go. So I had to coach her through shifting her mindset that she was in a different situation now. She needed to collaborate. She didn't have authority to make all the decisions necessarily. And then she had to learn how to deal with different personalities that she hadn't dealt with before because she was new to this whole leadership game and the dynamic and power at times that she had to deal with. And then she had to activate her plan. How was she going to build these relationships? Who was she going to connect with? Who would be her best allies? So she had to activate that plan and figure out what her goals were. And then she had to stop and reflect and figure out, is this really what I want to be doing? Maybe I need to refine my plan. And ultimately, she did leave that role because for her, this wasn't bringing her joy the way she had that experience in the emergency room situation. So she decided to move on to her next. So it was SOAR in action. Really now she's successful where she wants to be, where she's feeling fulfilled. But she took that step and she tried it and realized through the SOAR process that that really wasn't for her.
Wow, I love that example. And I have a follow-up question on the other side.
Okay.
So we're gonna talk about personal branding, but I thought something you said there was really, really strategic.
Mm-hmm.
You said how she had to build relationships, who were allies. And so, just old PM here, project management. And that's what they talk about a lot is stakeholder management. And so in branding, and back
Mm-hmm.
when I was at Microsoft, I had actually Jan was my co-mentor at
Mm-hmm.
Women at Work in Microsoft IT, and then later became my boss. And we navigated that beautifully because that was one of those, oh my God, is anything going to change? Because we were sort of peers, but I reported to her
Mm-hmm.
eventually. But she taught me something amazing, and that was to be very, very thoughtful about how do I want to establish these relationships? Who,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of, hey, I worked at Microsoft, so we used Excel,
Mm-hmm.
like regular habit, like have I reached out? Because I get very bogged down in the day to day and I forget the
Mm-hmm.
people side because, when, that just happens when you have a lot to do and big goals.
Right.
And so I'm curious, maybe you can answer both of those questions under sort of this branding topic.
Branding is so important. We sometimes think that if we just put our noses down and do the work that everybody will recognize and the rest is history, so to speak. And I think I was a little spoiled because early in my career, I think my first 4 promotions came at rapid rate without me needing to do any branding. It was based on my deliverables. So I thought that that was really the game. And then I realized the further up you go, that's no longer the game. You've got to do your branding. And I'll give you an example of how I got into doing the internal executive coaching was through my branding. So I created this bio, which was who I am, what are my skills, what makes me different or stand out, and what do I really want to do next? And I shared that bio with a woman who had just started up a women's advancement program, Open Doors, as you mentioned in the intro. And through my branding of myself, she realized my skills, my capabilities. We made a good connection. And I got the opportunity to coach women at the director level in the UK and in Europe. And I know that if I had not done that branding, personal branding, I would not have had the opportunity. So it really made me realize how important branding is. But the one thing I'll say is you have to make sure that your brand is true to you. You can't try to be somebody else or what somebody tells you you should be, because that's not going to feel genuine. So
Yeah. Yeah.
make sure that your brand is authentic, that it's who you are, who you want to be known as, and what you want to be known for.
It's a funny thing because when I was at Costco and I was developing the mentorship program, I decided I needed to get kind of plugged into leadership development. I went to John Maxwell team,
Mm-hmm.
which is now called the Maxwell Leadership Group, and
Mm-hmm.
they had these cards and a leadership game, because when people talk about themselves and unless it's an interview, it feels kind of like bragging. And so,
Yes.
and this was kind of like you could play a card and someone would be like, "Tell me who you're mentoring," or "Tell me
Mm-hmm.
your three biggest strengths." And in this
Mm-hmm.
situation of a game, it was like fine for people to brag. So, or to, it wasn't bragging, but to explain how they really are
Mm-hmm.
passionate about something, and hopefully that's their area of giftedness. So what would you say to people who are trying to brand themselves but feel like, oh, it's like bragging and it's awkward?
Mm-hmm. Listen, that relates totally to me. I had to do a paradigm shift from myself because I grew up where I was told being boastful, being, bragging was not acceptable. Actually, it was frowned upon. So that's the context that I come from, and it wasn't natural for me to be able to say, "Here's what I've done." But what shifted it for me, I read something somebody wrote where they said, "You're not bragging, you're informing." And that for me, it was a light bulb that went on, because I think it's about how you tell what you've done. It's not, what you're saying, it's really how. So if I say, I'm thrilled to say that I've accomplished this task and this is what the results were, that's different from saying, oh, I'm so amazing, I'm the best. So it's about how you tell it. But if you don't tell it, others won't know. And that is
That,
part of your brand.
I love that because, you were describing it as an I statement, like I'm excited and happy because this went the way I wanted. So it's kind of like, you know, not patting ourselves on the back, but being excited about, what it is that we do, which is really the
Hmm.
passion. And, I don't see anything wrong with having a lot of passion for what you do.
Right.
So that's fantastic. I love that. So what is the importance of self-belief and confidence then in career growth?
Self-belief and confidence is absolutely essential. And I actually, in preparation for our podcast, I pulled out some research that I wanted to share with you. So I'm just going to read it. So there's research by the University of Michigan that found that individuals with high self-esteem were more likely to achieve career goals and earn higher salaries. And then a study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology revealed that individuals with strong self-efficacy were more likely to set challenging goals and persist in the face of difficulties. And then Gallup did a State of the Global Workplace report and found that employees who feel engaged and empowered are more likely to be productive and successful in their careers. And it often correlates with those who have strong self-belief and self-confidence. So if we don't believe in ourselves, we'll never accomplish our dreams or our goals. So it really starts with building ourselves up internally to really love ourselves and who we are. We're all different. And we need to appreciate who we are and have that self-confidence so that we can accomplish what we want to accomplish.
This brings to mind, and I don't have the studies like you did, but years ago I heard a study that men and women apply for jobs at different percentages based on how qualified they believe they are.
Yes.
And that men take a bigger risk, and they may be, and I'm going to get these percentages wrong, but we'll just, for illustration purposes,
Mm-hmm.
60 or 70%, they think they're aligned with the job requirements and they'll apply. And the
Right.
women have to be much, much higher, like 80, 90. This was according to this one study that I can't tell you what it is because I don't remember
Yeah,
it.
but I remember reading the study too. I can't remember the facts right now,
Yeah,
but you're
and
correct.
it's so interesting to me because I know that you have a passion for helping women, and
Mhm.
you know, anybody who finds themselves in that situation, I would ask to challenge themselves to stretch. And so I don't know if you have any
Absolutely.
thoughts about any of that particular situation, or what you think can be a new way of women in general, if that's true for those women, to get beyond that limiting belief. Maybe that's a limiting belief. I don't really know.
Yeah, I think it's related to limiting belief, or maybe some people might say it's imposter syndrome. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's really about us taking a step back and saying, what am I good at? And just recognizing that no one has everything that's on that job requirement or job, description that's put in a job posting. So it's about taking the risk, saying, even if I have 50 or 60% of what's on this requirement list, I'm going to apply, because there might be something in either your background or your experience or your training that might pique the interest of that recruiter. And you have to be in it to win it. If you don't put your name in the hat, your name can't get picked. So
yeah.
go
There you
for
go.
it. What's the worst that can happen? It's either a yes or a no. And so put yourself out there. I've had to learn that, personally. If you've got to put yourself out there, otherwise you might not get some of the opportunities that are available for you to take advantage of.
Yeah, I was laughing. My husband and I, you're only slightly less likely to win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. But but humor aside,
Yes.
there is risk, but there's also betting on yourself, right? And
Yes.
I love reframing. That's how my mind thinks. And so I thought, well, for those people that do kind of bet on themselves and maybe they're not a perfect fit, but guess what? To your point, maybe the recruiters see something and they go, oh, we got to talk to this person.
Hmm.
And you, as the candidate, you're learning, right? You're
Right.
learning about how you're, from someone else's perspective, how your skills match this particular role. And if you
Yes.
applied, it means you have interest. And so, is there some downside? I mean, there's some hours that you took, but
Yeah,
maybe the learning is worth it, kind of a thing.
absolutely.
Yeah. And one thing I learned at Microsoft was this whole idea of informational interviews. And I don't know if that's still the way people talk about it, but anybody can talk to a hiring manager. They can reach out, whether or not the hiring
Hmm.
manager says yes or no is up to them. But you could say, or it doesn't even have to be a hiring situation. It could be like you're thinking about your career and you're like, 2 years down the line, I might want to make a change. And so I want to learn about
Hmm.
this area. So
Hmm.
you send an email and say, do you have 20, 30 minutes? I really love to know more about kind of what you're responsible for in your area, because this is something brand new to me. And this is the thing. People love to talk about what they're doing, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
And you're going to get so many yeses, and it's really an education. So I don't know if you found this to be true in your
Yeah,
journey.
I've actually found that to be true. And I've also tried to make the or create the opportunity to pay it forward, so to speak. So,
Oh yeah, totally.
so I'll tell you that as I've stepped out of corporate now and I'm, working to advance my coaching business, I've spoken to a number of people who have done things similarly, left maybe 7 years ago. And it's amazing how people want to help. If you ask for help, people will help. People will share their ideas, their blind spots that they had, things that you want to pay attention to. But then on the flip side, I've had people who have reached out to me on LinkedIn, young women who have just graduated, and asked if I would give them a few minutes, to talk. And we've had a Zoom call, and I've found out what their aspirations are, given them some suggestions on what they could pursue. And it's been rewarding. So I think it's a two-way street. We get from others with these collaborations and or informational interviews, as you call them,
Mhm.
but then we can also give that as well to others who are coming up the ladder.
Well, that's even true in mentorship relationships, because many of my mentees, when I ran the
Mhm.
program, they were like, well, but what can I help a VP for? And I go, well,
Hmm.
that VP is not doing your job.
Right.
May have a broader, high level 50,000 foot view, but they don't know the basics of your job. They don't know the dynamics, challenges. And so, and that's just that one role. And so there's a lot of value, even mentees can have in kind of reverse mentorship, kind of.
Absolutely. And my previous company, especially when the whole digital marketing and the digital space started
Yeah.
to expand, there was reverse mentoring between high-level senior executives and then junior employees who were more savvy in this new digital environment and could share their learnings with the senior leaders. So there's always value in whether you want to call it cross-generational mentoring or just cross-level mentoring. There's always value and you learn on both sides.
Awesome. So, what are some of the challenges that you faced as you progressed throughout your career?
Well, I think I told you about the first one, with the taking over a new function. But another one was actually believing in who I was and not trying to be somebody else. And what I mean by that is I was in a company. There were about 10 of us who were directors within the customer service space. And I remember, you're in these meetings and you see how people are posturing and you think, okay, this is the way I've got to be because this is how I'm going to get the attention of my leader. And and one day I don't even remember now what happened, but I wanted to get my leader's attention. And so I ramped up the energy and I just talking a mile a minute and I figured this is, what was going to get him to give me a yes. And he looked at me and he said, "Could you please just slow it down?" He's like, "Go back to the other Andrea." He's like, "I don't like this Andrea. What is it that you need?" And I got my point across. I got, what I needed to get resolved. It got resolved. But it was interesting that here I was trying to be like my peers because I thought that was how they got his attention. But I didn't realize that I had his attention anyway, because he recognized who I was different from the others. And it wasn't until I had another leader about a year after, and one day he said in our staff meeting, he said, "If all of you are the same, I don't need all of you. I need each of you to be yourselves because that's how we have a stronger team." And that when I that's when I really like that's really what my first boss meant when he said, "Go back to being you."
Everybody else is taken.
Everybody else is taken. Absolutely.
So winding it down here, and forgive me if you guys hear any pounding. They're fixing my roof. What advice would you give to young women who aspire to achieve similar success in their careers?
The first thing I would say is be self-aware. Know yourself. Know what you're good at, know what you love doing. Just make sure that you know who you are because otherwise you might get tossed, from group to group or get sidetracked in your career and then you're going to stop and think, is this it? Is this what I want to be doing? So know yourself. The other thing I would say is go for any experience that you can that will help you ultimately get to your goal. And a lot of times I talk with young people and they want to get promoted tomorrow morning. We got to move up the ladder quickly. And sometimes it's not moving up. Sometimes it's moving laterally, going into a totally different function. Maybe you're in marketing and you move over into supply chain so you understand the back end of how things operate for you to be able to make the profits you want to make on your products as you're marketing them. Maybe you might go into sales, maybe you might go into an education function, depending on the business you're in. So be open to new experiences and build your skill sets and your toolbox, so to speak, doing that. And then the other thing I would say is seek out mentors, but make sure it's somebody you can have a good relationship with because it's a two-way street. So there's got to be a good fit just from a personality and just you've got to click together, if that makes sense. And then remember that if you want to be sponsored, that you've got to deliver on what is being expected of you. And if you get homework assignments from your mentor or your sponsor, do it. Be responsible, be respectful, because they're investing in you. And just remember that it all comes together in the end. You mightn't see it, but somehow all these pieces, all these experiences are just part of a puzzle that will make you a better you and wherever your career goal, ends up being. So I would say, believe in yourself, know who you are, and just keep going at it because it will all work out in the end.
I love that. Yeah, my mentor says, borrow my belief. And I have the feeling that you would be lending belief to your, mentees or coaches as
Absolutely.
well. Well, gosh, just thank you so much. I'm going to turn the page and let people know how they can get in touch with you. To contact Andrea, you can go to her website. As I mentioned, she's got a couple books out there, so hopefully that's on your website. Thank you so much for your time. This has been just a delight. And hat tip to everybody. We didn't know each other, but we both worked at Nestle at the same time. Like, it's a small world out there. Who knows when you do an informational interview, what you might find out.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, Ellen. This has been a delightful just getting to meet you and know you, even though we worked at the same
We were
company and didn't
probably
know
in
each
an
other.
elevator together multiple times. So.
Probably, yes. And appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast, and hopefully we'll impact some women and help them on their sponsorship and mentorship journeys.
You got it. You got it. So thanks, everybody.